jury is present, sir.
Sir, thank you. You may call your next witness. Yes, sir.
State of South Carolina, we're now called Dathan Murdaugh.
I do.
State your name again for the record. Spell your last name.
My name is Dathan Brian Murdaugh. Last name is Varnadoe.
Good afternoon.
Afternoon.
Dathan Murdaugh?
Yes, I go by Brian.
Okay. And your rank, sir?
I'm a sergeant.
Sergeant Murdaugh, would you tell the ladies and gentlemen of this jury, please, about Brian Murdaugh, where you're from, your background, a little bit of your family, and how you got in law enforcement?
I'm from right here in Walterboro, South Carolina. I started in the Department of Corrections in 1996. I worked in the Department of Corrections state prison system for 18 years, and now I've been here with the Condemn County Sheriff's Office almost 10.
Okay, and I know you kind of soft. You just pull up and maybe speak in there a little bit if you don't mind, Sergeant. So you worked in the prison system for how long?
18 years.
Okay. And then after that, you came to Colleton?
Yes, I came to Colleton in 2013.
Okay, tell the folks what different areas have you worked in Colleton?
In the Sheriff's Office for about a year. I worked the road. Then in 2014, I went to investigations, primarily gang investigations, and I worked in that area until now present.
You know, tell them about your training in law enforcement. Y'all go through Criminal Justice Academy?
Criminal Justice Academy.
Periodic. Talk about it a little bit, please.
South Carolina Criminal Justice Academy. I believe at that time it was 11 weeks. It changes. I was there 11 weeks, and we go through the basic training for law enforcement through the legals, traffic stops, so forth. But and I also have training there in gang investigations. Also, they provide.
And are you married?
Yes.
How many children do you have?
I have 2.
Does your wife work?
Yes.
Where does she work?
Works for the city of Walterboro.
City of Walterboro. Now, if I could please take you back, Sergeant, to June, specifically June 7th of 2021. What was your role with the Colleton County Sheriff's Department that day, please?
I worked in investigations during that time also. Of course, the night of this incident, I was off at that time. I was called in later.
And were you on call?
We somewhat
Did pretty much everybody get called in?
Yes, sir. All investigators got called in.
And where were you told to respond to? Where did you respond to, Sergeant?
The location on Moselle Road.
4147 Moselle Road?
That's right.
In Colleton County?
In Colleton County.
Please tell the ladies and gentlemen, when you're coming up to Moselle, well, first of all, do you remember what entrance, how you went in?
Yes, I went in by the dog kennels, that entrance. Not all the way down. I parked near the roadway and walked in.
Had you been to that residence prior to June 7th when you got there in 2021?
It had been some years when I was on the road. I responded to an alarm call out there one time.
Years prior to this?
Yes.
Did you know where to go when you got there? I mean, what were you instructed to do? Do you know where to go on the property?
I was told that driveway where the dog kennels are. Don't come in where the brick columns are.
going to show you what's marked as stage 303. Sergeant, I've never shown you this before, have I?
No.
Do you recognize this is an aerial view of Moselle? And where you responded?
Yes.
Okay, Your Honor, without objection, 303.
It's admitted.
And you said you came in the second entrance?
Yes, you want to point to it?
Can you do that?
Right here. I parked somewhere in this area. And I walked the rest of the way.
And Sergeant, you get out of your car and then tell them what you did next.
When I got on scene, there was other emergency vehicles there. Other investigators had beat me there. Pretty much I made contact with my supervisor and asked him what he needed me, what area he needed me in, what he needed me doing.
And who is your supervisor?
Captain Jason Chapman.
And what did he tell you or ask you to do or instruct you to do?
He instructed me to find Mr. Alex Murdaugh and take GSR of his hands, gunshot residue.
Prior to that, did you have an occasion, did you see the bodies of who we all know now are Paul and Maggie? Did you see their bodies?
Yes.
Okay. Did you get close to them or inspect them?
I didn't inspect them. Maybe 10 feet, maybe.
Okay. So you were able to see them from a distance,
Yes.
is that fair?
Mm-hmm.
So your captain had instructed that you find Alex Murdaugh and attempt to get a GSR kit, or to take GSR from him?
Administer a kit to, yes, sir.
All right, and I don't think there'll be any objection to this. Tell the folks what is a GSR?
It stands for gunshot residue. The kit itself tests for gunshot residue on the hands is where it's administered to the hands of an individual.
At the Colleton County Sheriff's Department and maybe other places, are you trained in how to collect that from an individual?
Yes, we train in-house.
And
It's pretty self-explanatory.
okay, pretty simple procedure.
That's right.
Had you taken GSR from a person prior to this?
Yes.
Okay. How many times? You got any idea?
20.
Now, when you got there, how far was the defendant, Alex Murdaugh, from where you were? Where was he? When you were told to go check his hands?
He was at this time when I saw him. He was behind the yellow tape they had up the backside. It's actually an area between the sheds or the dog kennels and his home.
Okay. And after the captain had asked you to do that, what'd you do?
I went and got a kit and approached Mr. Murdaugh.
Had you ever seen Alex Murdaugh before that night?
Yes.
Okay. Did you know him before that night?
Yes.
Okay. Well, can you tell us how you knew him?
I testified as an expert witness in one of his cases.
An expert witness?
Yes.
Is that the gang which you said earlier you're back?
Yes, it had to do with a gang case.
And do you mind what you testified to?
It was some terminology that was used in a phone call, and he wanted, in my area of expertise with gang lingo and gang slang, he wanted me to testify to a statement that was said on a phone call.
So you weren't involved in the actual case?
No.
Okay. So Mr. Defendant Alex Murdaugh asked you to come testify as an expert?
Yes.
Okay. And was he sitting over here at the time at this table?
Yes.
I mean, the prosecution table?
Prosecution table, yes.
In this courtroom?
It was here at Hampton, I'm not
Okay.
100% sure.
In a courtroom?
Right.
Well, I'm curious, what were you called to testify about?
Like I said, it was some terminology used in a phone call. He was prosecuting in this case.
What were you asked to testify the terminology? I'm just curious.
An individual was on the phone telling someone to go and get the whistle, and he wanted me to clarify what that term
Get
meant.
the whistle?
Yes.
What
He was referring to a firearm.
Okay, the whistle. So you were interpreting that a whistle meant a firearm?
Right.
Okay, and the inmate wanted somebody to do something with the whistle?
That's what I was told the phone call was about, yes.
Okay. Did you testify?
I did.
And when was that?
It's probably been 5-6 years.
Okay. So on June 7th of 2021, when you saw the defendant, did he recognize you as far as you can tell?
Yes.
Okay. Did he recognize you as far as you could tell?
Yes.
Did he say your name?
Yes.
Okay. Did you say his name?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And can you tell the jury how you went about to do your job?
I'm sorry, say again?
How'd you go about doing your job? What'd you do? What'd you say to it?
I approached him, I had the kit, and I went to Mr. Murdaugh and told him I had to administer this kit to his hands. He stated he understood the procedure, and just a few minutes, and I was out of his way.
And I do think not to do, but Your Honor, can you come down here?
Yes.
Please. I'm going to show you what's been marked States 301. Do you recognize this kit in general?
Yes.
Okay. And if you look inside?
Not a different one.
Okay, would you look inside? Do you recognize this
Yes.
type of kit? Is this the type of kit you used on the defendant Alex Murdaugh on June 7th of 2021?
Well, actually, the type of kit had, I believe, had 4 vials, but it's the same. It's the same idea.
Well, they used to have 4, but now they have 2, correct?
Yes.
Okay. You're on 301 without objection.
That's correct.
Submit it.
If you stay here, let's pull out 301 and just show the jury what you did. And I've got some questions, Sarge. You okay?
Yeah, I'm good.
Okay. What's the first thing you do when you get ready to take a gunshot residue from somebody?
Well, I have my own gloves. I put
Okay.
on gloves before I administer this kit
Okay.
to the individual.
All right.
I explain to him what I'm doing and what it's for.
Keep your voice up, please.
Yes, sir.
Speak
I explain
up.
to him what it's for and why I'm doing it.
Okay. And you looking at them?
Yes.
How far are you from them?
About you and I.
Okay. And this night, let's go back there right now to June 7th. Are you looking at Mr. Murdaugh?
Yes.
Okay. Y'all knew each other?
Yes.
Did you smell the alcohol on him?
No.
Okay. Did he appear to be under the influence of anything to you? Alcohol, drugs, anything else?
No.
Okay. Could he understand what Brian Murdaugh was asking to him as far as you knew? Did he understand your questions?
Yes, as far as I knew.
And could you understand his responses? Just talking.
Yes.
Okay. And were his answers to you timely?
Yes, they were.
Subject matter appropriate?
Yes.
When you asked him if you could take a gunshot residue, did he comply?
He complied.
And I believe there were just 2 used this time. They used to do 4.
Yep.
Can you show the jury how you do it specifically?
You'll see it's labeled. It's pretty self-explanatory. On here it has the left hand, right hand.
You mind touching me and just do it on me like you did on him?
I can. Stop off over me. Come on.
All right, and what's that one marked on there?
This is for the left hand.
Okay.
It has a flat surface on the inside of the cap. Touch all the fingers, thumb, put the hand over the back of the hand, and full extent of the fingers.
Okay.
Place the cap back
Did you
on.
place it back?
Yes, and you put it back inside the bag,
Okay.
and you move on to the next one.
All right.
Do the same thing with the other hand.
Same thing with the other hand.
Yes.
Go ahead and do it, please. And so this whole time you're that close to him and you're doing that?
Yes.
Were his hands shaking?
I do not recall his hand shaking.
Now, after you do that, and I got a couple other questions I'll let you sit down, I'll ask you if you don't mind.
Okay.
Do you, to be right where we are now, to tell them what we're doing, do you document it?
Yes.
Okay. And, Joe. Let me show you what's 300. Does this relate to what we're doing right now, Sergeant?
It does.
And you're on a 300 without objection?
No,
Submit it.
Now, Sergeant, does it say what time you just took that gunshot, potential gunshot residue evidence from the defendant?
Yes, it's right here at the bottom.
And did you fill this out?
I did.
You
My
put your name
handwriting.
at top,
Yes.
badge number,
Everything but this. This is not me.
and date of birth. It's got the suspect's name, Richard Alexander Murdaugh.
Right.
And his date of birth's what?
5/27/68.
Now, you didn't know that, did you? You didn't know
No.
his date of birth. So did you have to ask him?
Yes.
Did he have any trouble telling you his date of birth?
No.
Okay. So you put that down when he told you. Subject is living, correct?
Yes.
Okay, and we'll bring that out with SLED later, but you took the sample off a live individual?
Yes.
No question about it. All right. And you filled out the rest of the form, correct?
I did.
No gunshot wound?
No.
No, it says any debris or blood or subject, this is what the form says. Any debris or blood or subjects on the hand, and what'd you mark?
No.
So does that mean you had to look at his hands to mark no?
Yes.
Okay, and so when you were looking at his hands, did you see any debris or blood on suspect's hands?
No, I did not.
And you looked at it?
Right.
Okay. How would you describe it?
Well, I recall his hands were clean.
And underneath there it says lawyer, honey, the rest of the
Well,
city
asking
evidence.
questions, yeah.
Okay, all right. And he signed it, correct?
No.
Okay, that's your signature. My bad, I couldn't see. Okay. One final question while I've got you up here. Did you observe what he was wearing? His shirt, his
I
shorts,
remember his
his
shirt.
shoes?
I do not remember his shoes or his pants or what he had on. I do
Okay.
remember his shirt.
Okay. And can you describe the shirt?
It was a white T-shirt.
Did it appear to have any blood on it from looking right here?
No, naked eye, I didn't see any.
Okay. Did it appear to be dirty?
No.
And is this also the chain of custody that you filled out for the GSR?
Yes.
Okay, and you turned it over, I believe, to Agent Worley?
That's Worley.
Okay. I believe 12 without objection. You can have a seat there. Okay.
Submit it.
Now, if referring to states 300 again, down at the bottom, it's got date and time shooting occurred. It's got 6/7/21.
Shooting occurred, yes.
Okay. And where'd you get that information from?
From the other people on scene.
Okay. And time, what time does it have by there?
I have 10 p.m.
And where'd you get that from? Do you know?
More likely it was my supervisor told me on scene.
I see that. And the time this collected was 11:15, correct?
That's correct.
Sergeant Ryan, Murdaugh, the individual that you collected the gunshot, performed the gunshot residue kit on, and the individual you described as his hands is clean to see in the courtroom.
Yes, he is.
Would you please point him out for the ladies and gentlemen?
He has a gray blazer and white button-up shirt.
We'd like the record to reflect. That's all we have. Thank you, Judge.
That's cross-examination.
Deputy Barnes, this individual right here, the defendant Murdaugh, Richard Alexander Murdaugh consented to you taking his GSR, correct?
Yes.
And he cooperated with you fully that night, correct?
Yes, he did.
And you had talked about a case that he had worked, and he was a prosecutor of a criminal drug case in this courthouse or maybe Tampa, but
Right.
right? And you worked on that case, not only with Richard Alexander Murdaugh, but his father, Randolph Murdaugh, correct?
That's correct.
And that was a drug prosecution of a defendant who was suspected to be involved in the Cowboys drug gang. Is that correct?
He was an affiliate, yes.
And that was a dangerous outfit that a lot of folks were prosecuted. Is that correct?
Basis for the objection. No.
Could you ask the question again, please?
The Cowboys were known for being dangerous in this area, correct?
Yes, sir.
And in that case, I think you thought maybe 5 years, but it could have been sooner than that, 2 or 3 years ago?
It could have been. It's been some years. I'm not sure exactly what year it was.
Yes. Now, you were shown this aerial photograph, and this is exhibit number 303. Have you been out to the property since the night on June the 7th?
Yes.
Okay. Now, this aerial photograph, you don't know what date this photograph was taken, do you?
I do not.
But you do know that this land here, frankly, right through there, were you aware that at one point in time, that area right there was used as a runway?
I did not know that.
Okay. But you do know that pine trees were planted all through here, correct? And
There are trees there, yes.
There's a stand of pine trees there that are not in this photograph. Is that fair?
That's fair.
Okay, thank you. And the now the form, if I can find it, sir. The collection form asks. It says subject's full name, and the subject was Mr. Murdaugh.
That's correct.
Okay. And did you? I mean, was he cordial and respectful?
Oh, yes.
To you?
Yes.
And have you been around him on multiple occasions? I take it, working on that case and perhaps other things.
A few times, yes.
And in your presence, has he always been respectful to law enforcement?
Yes.
Has always treated you with respect?
Yes.
Did he treat you with respect on the night of June the 7th?
Yes, he did.
And did he tell you he understood that you had to do a job and take his gunshot residue off his hands, correct?
That's right.
And he was shook up, was he not?
Yes, he was shook up.
Now, you showed how the collection is done and how you put the stamp on the front and on the back. Did you do a thorough collection of Mr. Murdaugh's hands that night?
Yes.
And did you intentionally leave any part of his hand untested?
No.
And you did your level best to get every particle of GSR off his hands, according to using that equipment that you had.
The way I was trained and taught, yes.
And were you aware that earlier in the night, after he called 911, that he went up to the house to get a shotgun and came back down? And when first responding deputy, I believe it was Green, came to the scene, that he seized that shotgun? Did you know that when you got
At that time, no.
You learned it later?
Yes.
And you're aware that gunshot residue can transfer from a gun onto a subject's hands, correct?
It's possible.
Okay. Now, you don't do any testing of gunshot residue, do you?
No.
That's done back at the SLED lab?
That's right.
Okay. And you didn't test any gunshot residue, well, I'll scratch that, I apologize. Did you collect any gunshot residue or attempted to collect any gunshot residue off any other part of Mr. Murdaugh's body?
No.
So you didn't try to take anything off his legs or?
No, the test is not for that.
Okay. Later in that evening, his clothes were collected for gunshot residue testing. Were you involved in that in any form or fashion?
No.
Deputy Varnadoe, I'm going to show you exhibit 59. I just want to ask you if 59 fairly and accurately depicts Paul Murdaugh as you saw him lying on the ground outside the feed room that night.
Yes.
Your Honor, I've introduced Appendix 59 into evidence under seal. I'm not going to publish it. We just need to get it in for the record without objection, I believe.
That's correct.
Submit it.
May I have the court's indulgence? That's all I have, Deputy. Thank you.
Just one follow-up. He was asking about the case you testified in. So, Alex Murdaugh did he call you as an expert on how to interpret whistle from an inmate's phone call who was trying to hide a weapon?
That's what I understood it to be, yes.
Whistle.
I wasn't part of the actual investigation.
That's all. Thank you.
Anything further?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Let me call your next witness.
Thank you, Your Honor. We call Rogan Gibson.
You affirm the testimony about the recording of the gospel through the truth and help of God.
I do.
Repeating the witnessing, state your name again for the record. Spell your last name.
Rogan Gibson, Gibson.
Mr. Gibson, how you doing today?
Good.
Ask the court reporter something. We'll give her a chance to catch up. You good? Mr. Gibson, I want you to introduce yourself to the jury a little bit. Tell us, where you grew up, where you went to high school, just a little bit about yourself before we get to your testimony.
I went to Wade Hampton High School. I'm from Hampton.
All right. And you working now?
I am.
All right. What field do you work in?
The agriculture field.
All right. Why don't you see if you can pull that mic up just a little bit and scoot up just a hair so you're speaking into it. I appreciate it. You said you're working in agriculture, is that right?
That's correct.
All right. And currently still working in agriculture?
That's correct.
Back in June of 2021, what were you doing? Working in agriculture?
That's correct. Farming.
What kind of job did you have?
I was farming, operating equipment.
Operating equipment. Okay. And let me ask you: did you get to know Paul Murdaugh?
I did.
All right. And tell me, how old were you when you got to know Paul Murdaugh?
I've known him all my life, real good, probably when I was 11, 12 years old.
And how did y'all get to meet one another? How did you become closer?
I lived next to him
Okay. And when did that happen?
when I was 11, 12 years old.
11 to 12. Y'all went to school together?
Paul was a little bit younger than me, and I didn't go to school with him.
Okay. When y'all were growing up, what kind of things y'all like to do together?
We enjoyed the outdoors, hunting, fishing, hanging around the farm.
Were you close friends with Paul until the day he was murdered?
I was.
Tell the jury just a little bit about Paul. Give me just a little sense of who he was as a person.
He loved the outdoors, hunting, fishing, hanging around. Really enjoyed the farm out there at Moselle.
Fun guy to be around?
He was.
Over the years, as you got to be closer friends with Paul, did you get to be closer friends with the rest of the family?
I was.
And was that just Paul and his brother and his parents, or was it sort of the Murdaughs, the larger family as well?
The whole family.
And over those years, as you became close with them, how close would you say? How close did you become?
Real close, like a second family.
Like a second family to you?
Yes, sir.
Paul, did you have a nickname for him, or did he have a nickname?
Rooster.
His brother Buster, did he have a name or a nickname?
Called him Bus.
Bus. What'd you call Maggie?
Miss Maggie.
What did you call Mr. Randolph, Paul's grandfather?
Handsome.
Handsome. How about Miss Libby, his wife, Paul's grandmother?
M.
Yeah. How about Maggie's parents? Did you have nicknames for them?
I called him Papa T and Grandma.
Papa T and Grandma?
That's
Like
correct.
M-A-R at the end?
That's correct.
What'd you call Alec?
Mr. Ellick, or Big Red.
Mr. Alec or Big Red. You said they were like a second family to you.
That's correct.
Being that close to this family, did you frequently go out to Moselle?
All the time.
Did you ever go to, did they have other properties too that you ever went to?
He did.
What were the other properties they had? And hold on for the sirens, if you will. What were the other properties that they had?
Edisto Beach, we went there a lot.
They had a house at Edisto Beach.
That's correct.
And any other properties while you were growing up that you recall?
The property in Hampton, the house in Hampton.
All right. Did they ultimately sell that property?
They did.
You remember about how long ago that was?
Not real sure.
When you would go out, when did they get Moselle? I mean, just roughly.
I believe it was like my freshman year in high school. So 14,
2014, something like that?
no, it was, I graduated in 14, so probably around 2010 maybe.
Okay. And over the years, did you spend a lot of time out there?
I did.
What were some of the things that you would do with Paul out there?
We would hunt, fish, hang around.
Ride around the property?
We work the food plots with equipment.
I got States 303 right here, this poster board. Can I ask you to come on down with the judge's permission, and let's kind of point out some things to the jury. All right, do you recognize this image? And what is that? Keep your voice up if you could.
That's a picture of the overview of the Moselle property.
Okay. And where's the residence in this picture?
Right here.
And is there a driveway to that residence?
That would be the main driveway.
Do you see Moselle Road on this particular image? Going right down there? All right. What's this red roof building right there?
That's the old airplane hangar.
Okay. And did y'all have a name for that? Did you call it the hangar?
Yeah, the shed, the hangar.
The shed or the hangar? Any other structures out there?
That was the newer shed, the tractor shed. The dog kennel.
Okay.
And that's the skinning shed.
Skin and shed? And just real quick, what's the skin and shed
To
for?
this process. Wild game out there. Skinning wild game out there.
Was there a driveway to that part of the property?
There was.
Is that where it went right there?
What's that?
That's where it went right there that you just pointed?
Yeah, the driveway to the shed right there.
Was that driveway commonly used?
It was.
Was there, what's the structure right here?
That's the old cabin, the hunting cabin.
Okay. And how about across the street? Was there any structures across the street?
There was.
All right. What was it there across?
Shooting house.
All right. And can you just point roughly where that be? It might, right at the top of the picture. Okay. All right. And what is this right here?
The pond.
All right. And when y'all were, what was the shooting house used for?
We were sighting rifles, shooting kind of at that angle. There was a target down here.
Would y'all shoot rifles from the shooting house?
We would.
What about shotguns? Would y'all shoot those over at that shooting area?
Yeah, most times we shot them around the pond.
Around the pond?
That's correct.
Okay. Is this a line of trees right here?
It is.
And on the other side of that line of trees, what did y'all call that?
The dove field.
The dove field? Okay. All right, you can go ahead and have a seat for me. Thank you. You mentioned that y'all like to ride the property and shoot and hunt out there. Is that right?
That's correct.
What kind of hunting would y'all do out there?
Anything we could hunt.
Okay. Well, give me some examples, if you would, please.
Hog hunt, deer, turkeys,
Okay. Hog hunting, deer, and turkeys.
dove, quail.
Let me ask you this: turkey season. Do you know when that is in South Carolina?
It's like March, mid-March to early May.
Okay. All right. So it's a fairly short period of time in that time period.
That's correct.
You mentioned hogs first. Tell me about the hog hunting. How would y'all go hog hunting?
A lot of times we'd shoot them at night with a thermal scope.
Okay. And what weapon would y'all use to shoot those hogs with a thermal scope?
300 blackout.
Okay. And whose weapon was that?
I think it was Buster's.
Okay. Well, tell me about what you know about the blackouts. How the family got those blackouts.
They bought 2 of them, one for Paul and one for Buster.
Okay. And can you describe those two? Did you see both of them back in the day?
They were similar build. One was black, one was like a green tannish color.
Okay. And did anything ever happen to one of them?
Yes, one of them was stolen.
Okay. And were you present when that happened or around when that happened?
I wasn't present. I was just told about it.
All right. And what was the story you were told about that?
I was told somebody took it out of Paul's truck at a party.
At a party. Okay. How long ago was that?
I'm not exactly sure.
I mean, years?
Yes, it's been 5-6 years probably.
Okay. And let me show you something real quick. I'm going to show you what's already been entered into evidence in States 163. I'm going to have you look at that image, and particularly what's there on that pool table. Do you recognize that?
That's a picture of a 300 blackout.
All right. And is that the one that you and Paul would take hog hunting?
Yes, that's one of them.
You said one got stolen. To your knowledge, was there ever a replacement gun?
I don't remember a replacement. No,
You
sir.
don't remember replacement. You remember Paul using the black one, is that right?
That's correct. Or either the green and tan one before it was stolen.
Before it was stolen,
That's correct.
5 or 6 years ago.
Correct.
What other guns did Paul use a lot that he favored?
He favored a Super Black Eagle shotgun, 12 gauge.
All right. Let me show you another image if I could. I'm going to show you what's already been admitted into evidence in States 3 and see if you recognize that.
I do.
All right. Tell me what that is.
That's a Super Black Eagle.
All right. And do you specifically recognize that gun?
Yes,
And what gun is that?
that's Paul's gun.
And how can you tell?
The camo pattern and the strap.
Would Paul frequently have weapons with him when he was on the property or in his truck or that sort of thing?
He would.
All right. What sort of weapons would he frequently have with him?
A lot of times he carried the 300 blackout in his vehicle, and then, I mean, sometimes pistols, different shotguns.
Okay.
But
All right. Would he carry that shotgun a lot as well?
yes, I have seen him carry that shotgun.
We'll show you what's been frequently entered into evidence of States 4. And will you do me a favor? You see that box of gloves right there? Will you just put them on the floor behind you, just kind of out of the way? I'm going to have you look in here and see if you recognize that.
That's Super Black Eagle 3 of Paul's.
That's Paul's favorite shotgun?
That's correct.
What about deer? Did he have a weapon he liked hunting deer with?
He did. It was a 7mm 08.
Okay. Did Paul ever have any pistols to your knowledge or carry around any pistols?
He did sometimes. Yeah.
Sometimes. What were his favorite 2 guns? Or the most guns he most commonly had around?
Probably that 300 and Super Black Eagle. That's the ones I've seen him use the most.
Tell me about a little bit about the hog hunting. You said y'all would hunt them at night.
That's correct.
All right. And tell me how that works. What would y'all do? Y'all walking around? Y'all riding around? How does that go?
Most of the time we drove four-wheeler vehicle. We didn't hardly ever walk, but that scope, the thermal scope, would pick up the heat.
Okay. And where on the property would y'all hunt?
All over.
The hogs you hunt all over?
That's correct.
When you and Paul were together hunting with that blackout, did you usually have the gun and shooting, or did Paul usually have the gun and shooting?
It just depends.
Who had the gun more?
Probably Paul.
One guy's driving, the other guy's looking?
That's correct.
Is that something y'all did frequently?
A good bit, yes, sir.
If y'all ever killed a hog, what would y'all do with it?
Sometimes we would give it to people that wanted to butcher it. Sometimes we just let nature take its course, just leave it wherever it was shot at. It just depends. Sometimes we'd skin them out ourselves.
Are hogs a nuisance animal?
They are.
We're talking a little bit about Paul and who he was. How was Paul with his cell phone?
He was on his cell phone a lot.
Let me ask you a little bit about Miss Maggie. You mentioned before that the family had a couple of properties. In the summertime, where did Miss Maggie prefer to stay?
She liked to stay at Edisto
And did you know why she preferred Edisto?
because of the yellow flies at Moselle.
The yellow flies.
That's correct.
What about Paul and Alec? Where would they stay most of the time?
Well, Paul, if he was back home, he'd stay at Moselle, but a lot of times he was in Columbia or Charleston.
Did he have an apartment in Charleston?
Not to my knowledge in Charleston. No.
I'm sorry, in Columbia. I meant
In Columbia, yes.
Okay, thank you. Back in June 7th of 2021, you were working in agriculture,
That's correct.
working in farming,
That's correct.
hard work.
Yes, sir.
What time did you have to get up in the morning and go to work?
Normally get up about 5 o'clock.
5 o'clock. Where were you staying at that point in time?
I was staying at my girlfriend's house in Beaufort.
In Beaufort. Don't have to say her last name. What was her first name?
Mary Ann.
Mary Ann? Okay. And why were you staying at Beaufort at that period, at that point in time? Was that where your house was or not?
No, my house was not there. I was working on St. Helena. It made it a closer ride for me to go to work.
All right. So you were staying with your girlfriend because of that?
That's correct.
Did you have a dog at that time?
I did.
And what kind of dog?
Chocolate lab.
Chocolate lab. Still have the chocolate lab?
I do.
What's the dog's name?
Cash.
Cash. How old was Cash about that time?
I'm guessing he was a puppy, 4, 6 months old maybe.
Did you were you able to keep Cash with you when you were staying at your girlfriend's in Beaufort?
I was not able to
And why was that?
because she wasn't allowed. She was renting a house. We couldn't keep one there.
What arrangements did you make for Cash when you were staying in Beaufort and you couldn't keep him at your girlfriend's house?
I would leave him at the kennels at Moselle.
And tell me how that came to be. How did you work that out?
I asked Mr. Ellick if I could leave him there. I'd be gone a week at a time. Just leave him there for a week, pick him back up when I come back home on the weekend.
All right. Did you leave food for him, that sort of thing?
I did.
So where was he staying when he was at Moselle during the week when you were working
In the kennel.
in the kennel? Describe the kennels a little bit for the jury. What was the structure like?
It was like a lean-to shed with about somewhere around 8 kennels under it, and a feed room on the end.
And Cash was staying in one of those.
That's correct.
You'd go get him on the weekend.
Friday night or either Saturday. Yes.
Where would you take him then?
Back to my house
All right. And just where were you living at that time?
in Colleton County.
In Carlton County. You get up at 5 a.m. and get to work. About what time you get to work, working farming?
I'd roughly get to work somewhere around 7:30.
7:30. And then what time would you get off?
It all depended.
What time
I
typically
mean,
would you get out?
5, 6, 7 o'clock.
Just depending on how much work need to get done.
That's correct.
Were you pretty tired when you got home?
I was.
During the course of that day, June 7th, 2021, did you have any communications with Paul?
I did.
What's the first one you remember?
Sometime around lunchtime.
All right. What did y'all communicate? Did y'all talk on the phone? Did y'all text or what?
Yeah, I think he called me and told me about the sunflowers had been sprayed in the Dove field and they were dead.
Okay. What did he say about that?
Said that he was getting ready to replant them.
They've been sprayed with some Roundup or something?
That's correct.
Did y'all talk about anything else that you remember?
Not that I remember.
While I'm thinking about it, I asked you about Paul and his use of a cell phone. Do you know where he kept his cell phone when it wasn't in his hand?
Most of the time in his pockets.
Was he typically one to respond pretty quick to you? If y'all were
Normally-
talking about something?
Normally, yeah, if we were talking about something, he would respond pretty quick.
That evening, did you talk to Paul again after that initial conversation?
I did.
All right. And when was that, roughly?
Around 8:40.
Okay. And what was that conversation about?
He called and asked if something was wrong with the dog's tail.
Okay. And was that the first you were hearing about that?
That's correct.
Tell me about your conversation.
I told him that, I wasn't real sure. I just dropped him off there Sunday. And told him let's try to see if he can get me a picture or FaceTime me and let me see what was going on with the dog's tail.
All right. Where was Paul when he called you?
He was at the dog kennels.
And how do you know that?
I could hear the dogs barking in the original call.
Is he describing to you what he's seeing on Cash's tail?
That's correct.
And Cash was at the kennels?
He was.
Did you hear any other voices when you were on the phone with Paul about 8:40?
I did.
And what voices did you hear?
I heard Miss Maggie.
And who else did you hear?
And I thought it was Mr. Ellick that I heard.
You thought it was Mr. Ellick. You talked to Paul, and what did y'all talk about? What was he going to do?
He was going to try to FaceTime me. He
And-
said, you know how the service is out here. He said, if I can't get the FaceTime to go through, I'll send you a video.
And why was he going to FaceTime you? What's the difference between FaceTime and a regular call?
So I could see what was wrong with the dog.
And y'all talked about how the service is out here?
That's correct.
And what did you mean by that?
Most of the time you got enough service to make a call. I mean, sometimes the calls would break up, but a FaceTime, you couldn't really get a whole lot of service to make the FaceTime call. It's kind of lagging.
Y'all have had problems with that before?
That's correct.
Did y'all discuss what to do if the FaceTime didn't work?
We did.
And what was the discussion?
He was going to send me a video of it, of the dog.
He was going to video it and then do what with it? Text it to you?
That's correct.
Is that the last time you ever talked to your friend?
That was.
Did y'all try to FaceTime?
We did.
Did it work?
It came through, but it was kind of lagging. I couldn't tell what was going on.
And then never heard from him again.
That's correct.
Did you ever get that video?
I did not.
After you never got the video, did you try to reach back out to Paul to see if you could get him to respond?
I did. I called him a few times and texted him.
Did he ever respond?
He did.
Did you reach out to anyone else trying to get Paul to respond?
I texted Miss Maggie.
Did she respond?
She did.
About what time do you think you went to bed that night?
I'm not exactly sure. It was sometime right after I probably tried to contact him.
And you never heard from Miss Maggie either?
I did.
Did you ever talk to her at all that day?
I did.
About what time you think you went to bed?
I'm going to say somewhere around 10 o'clock.
10 o'clock. You a pretty sound sleeper?
That's correct.
Been working on the farm all day?
That's correct.
Did some calls come in that you didn't realize because you were asleep?
Yes, I woke up with some missed calls.
What time did you wake up the next morning?
Sometime around 5:30.
When did you find out that your friend Paul and his mother Maggie had been murdered?
That same time, 5:30.
How'd you find out?
I called one of my friends that had left me, or I had a missed call from, and he told me what had happened.
And tell me his first name, please.
Nolan.
What'd you do after that?
We got a little old boy up and got him to school without talking about it a whole lot, and then we headed back home.
And by home, you mean Colleton County?
Colleton County, that's correct.
And where'd you go from there?
I went to my house first, then I ended up going to Moselle
About what time you think you got there?
sometime maybe 8:30, 9 o'clock.
What'd you see when you got there? Where'd you go on the property?
I went to the dog kennels.
And who'd you see there? Did you talk to anyone there?
I did, and I seen John Marvin, but I didn't speak to him.
Did you talk to anybody at the scene when you first went there?
The only person I seen was John Marvin.
What'd you do after that?
My cousin let the dog out the kennel.
That being cash?
That's correct.
Did you take cash with you?
I did.
And where'd y'all go from there?
To the convenience store down the road from the house.
And who'd you meet there?
I met a game warden.
And what'd you do after that? Did you have a conversation?
I did. I had a conversation with him, and he said that law enforcement was going to be wanting to speak with me. And I told him, I said, well, if you got a contact, let's get them up here and let's talk.
And so did you wait for law enforcement to arrive?
I did.
Do you remember who you talked to?
I did.
And who'd you talk to?
Jeff Croft and Katie McAllister.
And did they do an interview of you?
They did.
Did they ask you about your communications with Paul the night before?
They did.
And did they ask you to see your cell phone?
They did.
Did they take screenshots of your cell phone?
That's correct.
Were you showing them your communications the night before with Paul and Maggie and others the night before?
Yes, sir.
Were you holding up the phone and they were taking screenshots?
Yes, sir.
I'm going to show you what's been marked for identification. 165, 166, 167, 168, 169, 170, 171, and 172. And just flip those real quick and see if you recognize those images. Do you recognize those?
I do.
And what are those?
That's all activity on my phone. Missed calls, text.
Stand by for one second. Your Honor, just out of an abundance of caution, I believe these are in evidence, but just to be clear, 165, 166, 167, 168, 169, 170, 171, and 172. We would make sure those are in evidence. Move those in evidence to leave without objection.
That's correct.
They're admitted.
All right. May I have the Elmo, please? Mr. Gibson, I'm going to put these up on the screen. You got a screen up there, and so take a look at that, okay?
Okay.
All right, 165. Can y'all turn the screen around for me, please? And that's a screenshot that Jeff Croft took of your phone that on June 8th, 2021, the next day.
That's correct.
All right, and that reflects a call from who?
Paul.
And which Paul is that?
Paul Murdaugh.
All right, and what time is that call?
8:40 p.m.
And how long does it last?
4 minutes.
All right, and is that the call you just described to this jury?
It is.
The call y'all were talking about Cash the dog and trying to figure out the tail?
It is.
I'm going to show you what's been marked as 166. Now, again, you told this jury that when y'all got off the call, he was going to try to FaceTime you, and if not, send a video.
That's correct.
All right, I'll show you 166. Is that another screenshot of it?
It is.
And that's the FaceTime call, is that right?
That's correct.
8:44 p.m.
That's correct.
for 11 seconds.
That's correct.
That FaceTime didn't work, though, did it?
Yeah, it came through, but it was lagging. We couldn't communicate through it.
So y'all stopped.
That's correct.
And you were expecting what after that?
A video.
I'm going to show you what's been marked as States 167. Are these texts that were on your phone?
They are.
And who are those texts between? Who are you trying to text right there down those last two bubbles?
I was sending those texts to Paul.
All right. It's got a little glare on it. Well, what time is that text right there?
8:49 p.m.
And that's on June 7th, 2021?
That's correct.
And what are you telling Paul right there? Can you read that to the jury and then explain what you were trying to say to Paul, please?
See if you can get a good picture of it. Mary Ann wants to send it to a girl we know that's a vet. Tell him to sit and stay, and he shouldn't move around too much.
Who were you talking about when you said tell him to sit and stay?
Cash, the dog.
Did you send another text right here?
I did.
What time is that? Can you read it?
9:58 p.m.
What do you say?
Yo.
And when you say yo to Paul, what are you trying to get him to do?
Just trying to get him to call me back or text me back.
Because you hadn't gotten that video.
That's correct.
I'm going to show you what's been marked as 168. States. Is that another screenshot of your phone?
That is.
These are missed calls from June 7th, 2021?
That's correct.
Or these are outgoing calls?
They are.
Who are you trying to call?
Paul Murdaugh.
Tell me the times you tried to call him. Start from the bottom, please.
9:10 p.m., 9:29 p.m., 9:42 p.m., 9:57 p.m.
Did he ever respond?
No, sir.
I'll show you what's been marked as States 169. Is that another screenshot of your phone?
It is.
Who are you trying to call right there?
Paul.
What's that last call?
10:08 p.m.
Did he answer that call?
He did not.
Show you what's been marked as States 170. Is that another screenshot of your phone?
It is.
And who are you trying to text right here?
Miss Maggie.
What time did you try to text her?
9:34 p.m.
And what did you text her?
Tell Paul to call me.
Tell Paul to call me.
Yes, sir.
Did she ever respond?
She did not.
You said you woke up the next morning on June 8th, 2021, and you saw you had some missed calls. Is that right?
That's correct.
And we'll show you what's been marked as States 171. Was this also a screenshot or a picture that Special Agent Croft took of your phone?
It is.
All right. And who are those missed calls from?
Mr. Elliott.
And what time did they come in?
10:21 p.m. and 10:24 p.m.
And that would have been on June 7th, 2021?
That's correct.
Were you asleep at that time?
I was.
Unaware they were coming in?
That's correct.
172. Is that another screenshot of your phone?
It is.
All right. And those other missed calls that came in?
10:25 p.m. and 10:30 p.m.
When you spoke to Special Agent Croft on June 8th, 2021, did you tell him and Special Agent McAllister who you thought you heard on that phone call at 8:40?
I did.
And who did you say you heard?
I thought it was Mr. Elliott, but I wasn't exactly sure.
Did you give him a percentage?
I did.
What'd you say?
99%.
That you heard Mr. Alec on that phone call at 8:40.
That's correct.
As time went on after the murders, did you go to Moselle where all the family and friends were gathering?
I did.
Were you there a fair amount?
Probably the whole part of that later that week.
While you were there at the house where the family and friends had gathered, did anyone ever ask you about your last contact with Paul?
There was
And who asked you?
Grandma.
And that'd be Miss Brandstutter,
That's correct.
Maggie's mother?
That's correct.
And what did you say?
Told her, yeah, that I talked to Paul about the dog, and told her that I heard Miss Maggie in the background, and I heard a male voice that I thought was Mr. Elliott.
Was he in the room then?
Yes,
Did he stand up and say, "No, I wasn't there"?
he did.
Did you ever have any conversation with Alec Murdaugh about what happened that night?
No, sir.
Did he ever ask you about whether or not you heard him on that phone that night?
No, sir.
Did he ever tell you what he did that night?
No, sir.
Did you ever ask him what he did that night?
No, sir.
Not a subject you wanted to talk about, was it?
That's correct.
Over time, as the months passed following the murder of Paul and Maggie, you were ultimately interviewed by law enforcement and other part of the process and that sort of thing. Is that correct?
That's correct.
And as time went on and you were asked about who you heard on the phone that night, that call at 8:40, you said, "Hey, I thought it was Alec, but I can't be sure."
That's correct.
Told law enforcement the night of, 99% sure, correct?
Say that question again, please.
Told law enforcement the next day, June 8th, that you were 99% sure. Is that correct?
That's correct.
As time went on, you said, "I thought it was Alec, but I can't be sure."
That's correct.
In November of 2022, did law enforcement ask you to come in and look at a video?
They did.
And did you watch that video?
I did.
And what was on that video?
It was the video. Paul was supposed to take a cash. Cash was on the video.
And did you recognize the voices on there?
I did.
Did you recognize the voices of your second family?
I did.
And what voices did you hear?
Paul's, Miss Maggie, Mr. Elliott.
And how sure are you now?
Positive.
100%?
That's correct.
I need 1 second for the computer to boot up.
So I'll stand for a moment. Okay.
Before we play the video, I want to ask a couple more questions. When you received that phone call from Paul at the kennels at 8:40 p.m. on the night of June 7th, 2021, did Paul sound normal to you?
He did.
Did he sound stressed to you?
He did not.
Did he sound like someone was there that he didn't know?
No, sir.
Did he sound worried?
He did.
Did you hear Maggie's voice?
I did.
Did she sound stressed?
She did.
Did she sound worried?
No.
Did she sound normal?
She did.
Did she sound like there was somebody there she didn't know?
No, sir.
Or that she was in danger?
No, sir.
Did you hear Alex's voice?
What I thought was his voice at the time, yeah.
When Maggie or Paul would go down to the kennels, how would they usually get there?
They would drive. Sometimes Miss Maggie would walk or ride a bike. If they had an ATV or a golf cart in the yard, sometimes they would drive that.
Paul more likely to be one to ride or one to drive down there?
Most of the time he would drive.
Was it usual for the family to go down there sometimes and let the dogs out?
It was.
Let them run around?
That's correct.
Did Miss Maggie like to do that?
She did.
Was it common, to your knowledge, for guns to be left down at the kennels?
Sometimes there was, yeah.
I'm going to play that video for you, okay?
Okay.
Get it. Get that. Quick, Cash. Quick. Come here. Come here. Cash. Hey, he's got a bird in his mouth. Hey, Bubba. It's a guinea. This is a chicken. Come here, Cash. Cash. Quick.
Is that the video you watched back in November 2022?
It is.
Where's that video taken?
At the kennels.
You recognize your dog?
I do.
You recognize Paul's voice?
Yes, sir.
You recognize Maggie's voice?
Yes, sir.
You recognize Alex's voice?
Yes, sir.
100%?
Yes, sir.
Can you point out Alec Murdaugh, the person whose voice you recognize in this video in this courtroom, please?
Sitting right there in the gray jacket.
Please let the record reflect he's identified the defendant. Thank you, Mr. Gibson. Nothing further.
Good afternoon, Rogan.
How you doing?
We've met many times, haven't we?
Yes, sir.
Tell the jury more about Paul, please. What did y'all like to do together?
We loved hunting, fishing, just hanging around. We loved staying at the beach, going to the sandbars. He could get along with just about anybody.
Was he one of your best friends?
He is.
Is this a hard day for you?
Yes, sir.
And Did you live one summer in the cabin there on the property?
Yes, me, Buster, and Nolan lived in the cabin, and Paul was there a lot.
And when you got a house of your own, I mean, it was just right down the road, wasn't it?
Yes, sir.
Down Moselle Road?
Yes, sir.
It was your grandparents' house or you moved into?
That's correct.
And, but before that, Ms. Maggie and Big Red over here, Mr. Alec, I mean, they treated you as family, didn't they?
That's correct. They did.
And Paul was like a brother to you?
Yes, sir.
And Ms. Maggie was like a second mom to you?
Yes, sir.
And Mr. Alec was like a second dad?
Yes, sir, he was.
And could you tell the jury what you observed Alec's relationship was, starting with you? What was his relationship with you?
We had a good relationship. I mean, he treated me like one of his own. I mean, we had fun. He gave me permission to hunt the property.
Did you have permission to come and go and down to the shop?
I did.
Did you have permission to use any of the equipment?
Yes, sir.
And did you help out on the farm for game management and stuff?
I did.
Okay. And can you tell the jury a little bit about Mr. Alec's relationship with his son Paul?
Very good relationship. Very good.
Were they close?
They were. Nothing happened without Paul telling Mr. Alec about it.
And did juries heard some Alec interviewed on the tape, various about how the Moselle property was Paul's passion.
It was.
Do you agree with that?
Yes, sir.
Why do you think it was his passion? What was he so passionate about out there?
He just loved hunting and using the equipment to manage for wild game, fishing.
Right.
He loved all of that.
Was Paul a good friend?
Yes, sir.
Was he a loyal friend?
He was.
Was he a loyal son?
Yes, sir.
Tell me about Miss Maggie.
She was like a second mother to me. Always took care of me. Treated me like one of hers.
Did you spend time down at Edisto?
I did.
And you and Paul and Miss Maggie, sometimes just the three of you down there?
It was.
Okay. What did Miss Maggie like to do?
She liked the beach.
When they were down at Edisto, were you the only friend welcome at the Edisto house, or what was it like?
There was many friends that were welcome to the house.
Like adult friends, or was
Most
Miss Maggie, Mr. Alec's home? Was it open to all of Paul and Buster's friends?
It was open to all of Paul and Buster's friends.
And was that the case at Edisto?
That's correct.
Was that the case at Moselle?
It was.
Did it appear to you that Mr. Alec enjoyed being around his family?
Yes, sir. He did.
And did you enjoy being around Mr. Alec and Ms. Maggie?
Yes, sir.
You remember, and I apologize, I'm going to get the date wrong, but do you remember in early 2019 that Paul was in a boating accident?
Yes, sir.
And a beautiful young woman died in that accident, didn't they?
Yes, sir.
Her name was Mallory Beach.
That's correct.
And Paul was eventually charged. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Did Paul receive any threats or harassments that you knew about as a result of that boating accident?
None that I thought was real serious. I mean, he mentioned it that, he'd get people comment about it, but nothing that I thought was real serious.
Did he, would people just mouth off to him when he went out bars or just with his friends?
Yes, sir. He had mentioned that.
But was it anything that you thought was serious in nature?
No, a lot of times I wasn't there when that happened, so I didn't think it was that serious.
Let me back up. I skipped over something. You played sports when you were a kid growing up?
Yes, sir.
I think your dad was a coach, was he?
Yes, sir.
And was Mr. Alec a coach to Paul and Buster?
He was.
And did Mr. Alec, when he wasn't coaching, would he and Ms. Maggie come to all the sporting events for the kids?
They were always there.
Can you think of them ever missing a sporting event for Buster or Paul?
Not that I can remember.
And they come to your sporting events?
Yes.
Now, and Paul had an apartment in 2021. He was starting to go back to school at Carolina. Do you remember that? He was in college.
Yes, sir.
School year.
That's correct.
And then in June he had moved back home. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Was he living at Moselle for the most part?
I think he was staying in Moselle some, but kind of all over the place.
And sometimes he stayed with his Uncle John Marvin down at Bluffton?
Yes, sir.
And he was working with his Uncle John Marvin, wasn't he?
That's correct.
Okay. Now, when he was on the farm, when he was at Moselle, now this gets a little confusing for me. Frankly, let me just ask you. Can you tell the jury about all the farm trucks there at Moselle?
Yeah, there was a lot of different vehicles that could be used anywhere from ATVs to tractors.
Well, let's just talk about the trucks. So
Okay.
what was Paul's primary truck?
Around the farm, most of the time, F-250.
All right, but what was his primary mode of transportation? Was it a truck?
It was F-150.
And was it white?
It was.
Okay, and did he drive that around the farm some?
Sometimes, yes.
And then there was a big F-250,
That's correct.
and that was also white, wasn't it?
That's correct.
Did that have a name, the big F-250 farm truck?
Yeah, White Boy. That was the older F-250.
And then there was another one called Dolly?
That's correct. That was a newer F-250.
That was a newer F-250. And then there was there a black truck?
There was.
And that was F-150?
It was.
And was that Buster's old truck?
It was.
So there were so Buster had another vehicle, and his old F-150 stayed at Moselle, correct?
That's correct.
And then Paul had his white 150 pickup, and where he was not at Moselle, there were still 3 other trucks at Moselle, right?
That's correct.
Dolly, White Boy, and then Buster's old black pickup.
That's correct.
And when Paul was there, he would drive any one of those trucks, wouldn't he,
Yes, sir.
on the farm? And no matter which one he was driving, he would most often have some sort of firearm in the truck, right?
That's correct. Most of the time on the farm, he had a firearm in the vehicle.
And those trucks, they would either stay down at the shed, the workshop, or at the house. I mean, there was no set place for them, correct?
That's correct.
And they didn't lock the trucks up, did they?
Not normally.
I mean, and then Paul would leave guns in the trucks, wouldn't he?
That's correct.
I mean, Paul would leave guns everywhere. Just about, wouldn't he?
Yeah, he could leave. He left a lot of stuff different places.
Yeah. Did he ever leave any guns at your house?
I'm sure he has over the years.
Okay. And then he would leave guns in the workshop, right?
I have seen guns in the workshop, yes.
And then, did they keep the workshop locked?
It just depends. Not a whole lot, but I have remembered it being locked, yes.
Was it more often not locked than locked?
Probably more recent. Yeah, it wasn't locked.
Did they, if someone were bent on mischief, would it be a hard thing to go up on that property and steal stuff?
Probably not around the sheds. It wouldn't be too hard.
And if someone were bent on mischief, would it be a hard thing to go open up and rifle through or look through White Boy or Dolly or Buster's old black pickup truck?
That is possible, yes.
And there were no security cameras down at the old airplane hangar, the workshop, the kennels, and the pole barn and skinning shed, were there?
Not that I was ever aware of.
Okay. And there were no, in the cabin where you guys stayed that summer, there was no security cameras there either, right?
Not that I knew of.
And was that cabin, did it stay locked?
Sometimes it was locked, sometimes it wasn't.
Paul left guns there too, didn't he?
I have seen guns in that cabin before, yes.
I want to not turn this thing upside down, but you talked about handsome. Who's handsome?
Mr. Randolph Murdaugh.
And Ms. Libby is who?
M.
Who's Ms. Libby?
M.
M. And that's Paul and Buster's grandparents, right?
That's correct.
And you know where they live?
In Alameda.
Alameda. And just generally, where's Alameda?
It's on the outside of Barnville.
Okay. Is it like a crossroads?
And it's a veer off. Go toward Ridgeland. If you veer off, if you stay on that road, you go to Embassy.
Right. If you're coming out of Hampton toward Varnville, then where the veer off is, that's called Alameda.
That's correct.
Now, to get to Alameda, and the most direct route, let me do this right, okay. So, can you see from back there?
I can.
And so this is the main house right here, correct?
That's correct.
And you can get down to Moselle Road by going one or two ways, right? You can either take a left and go down by the shop and the kennels, or you can go straight out the main driveway, is that right?
Yes, you can go out both ways.
But when you hit Moselle Road, would you turn right or left if you're going the most direct route to Alameda?
Turn right.
And be going down this way?
That's correct.
Okay. You were asking a little bit about Paul's cell phone usage. He was on it a lot.
He was on it a lot, yes, sir.
Yeah, and did battery get down low pretty regularly?
Yes, he would let his phone die sometime, or he would lose it.
Well, and when it would get down low, did he have a habit of not using it to try to keep him going all the way out?
Yes, I have seen that happen before.
And have you done that yourself?
Yes, sir.
And phone coverage, cell phone coverage on that property is somewhat, when I say that property, I'm talking about Moselle, somewhat spotty, isn't it?
It is.
And is there better coverage up at the house than down at the kennels?
I wouldn't think so.
Okay.
I mean, it's kind of hit and miss.
And you can be down at the kennels and you can be, walk 10 yards one way and you'd have some coverage, 10 yards the other way, you wouldn't have coverage. Is that right?
That's correct.
Now, back up here, you know, we don't have any measurements on what this distance is from the kennels to the house, but I mean, if you're just driving in a buggy or a car or what have you, I mean, tell the jury roughly how long it would take from in a vehicle to go from the kennels to the house.
It all depends how fast you're driving, but it don't take long to get from the sheds to the house.
I mean, you can do it under 2 minutes.
Definitely under 2 minutes.
Going fast enough, you can do it in a minute or less, I suspect. Is that right?
Yes, if you're going fast enough, you would be able to make it from the sheds to the house in under a minute.
Okay. You were asked about turkey season. When it started and when it ended, you remember? And you can tell me, I don't know, when's turkey season started?
Yes, most time mid-March to early May.
Okay. How about duck season? When's that start?
The first season starts around Thanksgiving. I think the weekend before Thanksgiving.
And when's the second season start?
Sometime in December,
And when's it end?
end of January.
Do you go duck hunting with Paul?
Yes, sir, I have.
And they had a duck pond on the property?
That's correct.
And did they keep it full all year, or did they drain it and plant it for the season?
Yeah, they would drain it after duck season and be ready to plant in the springtime.
And you helped with that?
I did.
And would Mr. Alec be involved, help doing that? But
He would.
and that was part of Paul's passion, doing things like that?
That's correct.
Now, waterfowl shells load are different than turkey loads, right?
That's correct.
What's the difference?
Steel shot.
And steel shot for what?
For ducks, waterfowl.
And why? Is it just preferred or is it required?
That's required.
Okay. Because you don't want lead in the water?
That's correct.
Okay. But for hunting purposes, if you just had your choice, would you rather hunt with lead or steel?
Lead shot.
Because it has greater knockdown power?
It does.
Okay. Is that why you would rather, or just price too, I suspect?
What's that again?
Why would you prefer lead over steel?
It has better knockdown. It's better.
Okay. Now, you were asked questions about 300 blackouts, and at one time, Paul had his own, and Buster had his own. They had 300 blackouts. You remember that?
I did.
And then you heard that Paul had one stolen out of his truck at a party.
That's correct.
And do you remember roughly when that was?
I'm not exactly sure.
Years ago?
Yeah, it's been a good many years ago.
And in recent memory, have you ever seen Paul with a 300 blackout other than the black one with the thermal scope?
Not to my knowledge.
So whenever you were with Paul and he had a 300 blackout, it was the black one with the thermal scope.
That's correct.
Did you ever see a 300 blackout around the house that was black without a thermal scope?
Not to my knowledge, I had.
And I know the jury's heard it. What's a thermal scope?
Picks up the heat from the animal. You can see it at nighttime because of the heat.
Just for night hunting?
That's correct.
And that's the best time to hunt hogs?
It is.
But during the daytime they stay in the swamp?
That's correct.
At night they come out?
Yes, sir.
And y'all had cameras out there to see when they were coming out?
Sometimes we did.
Okay. Now you listened to this videotape and heard that was your dog Cash,
It was.
Chocolate Lab,
Yes, sir.
and you heard Ms. Maggie,
Yes, sir.
and you heard Paul, obviously,
That's correct.
and Ms. Maggie was saying he got a
A guinea.
guinea, and then you heard a voice say, "No, it's a chicken." Do you remember whose voice that was?
That was Mr. Alex that said it the first time, and then Paul also said it was a chicken.
Okay. And then someone says, "Bubba, let go of that chicken," or something like that.
Yeah, just holler for Bubba.
And whose voice did you recognize hollering for Bubba?
Mr. Alex,
Okay. And who's Bubba?
their dog.
Did they have? And was Bubba a yellow lab?
He was.
Did Bubba have his own kennel?
He did.
Which one was it?
Most of the time he was in the first one right beside the feed room.
Now, you had talked to Paul. I think the records show you had a 4-minute telephone conversation before that video was taken, which you didn't receive until law enforcement showed you. But you remember you talked to Paul for about 4 minutes, right?
That's correct.
And I believe when you were interviewed, you said it sounded like Mr. Halleck had pulled up or something to that effect, driven up. Do you remember that?
No, I don't ever remember hearing a vehicle.
Okay.
I just remember hearing a third voice.
Okay. And the next day, excuse me, was it the 8th? The next day you went over and met with and went into the house at Moselle and you saw Maggie's parents,
That's correct.
and that's when Grandma, Miss Brandstetter, asked you if you heard Maggie's voice.
Yes.
Okay. And you told her you did,
Told her I talked to Paul and heard Miss Maggie.
and you told him in front of everybody that you had thought you'd heard Alex's voice too, right?
That's correct.
And he didn't push back whatsoever.
No, sir.
What was Alex's demeanor when you first saw him after the murders and days after? What?
He was just real distraught, sad. Just tore up about it.
Did he cry a lot?
Yes, sir.
Did he hug you?
He did.
Did he cry?
Yes, sir.
Did you cry?
Yes, sir.
I mean, did you cry the day after and the day after? I mean,
That was really sad.
right. 1 second. All right. On this video, you've been around Alec, Maggie, and Paul most all your life. Was there any? Did you notice any signs of distress or anxiety or anything out of the ordinary?
I did not.
And you've been around Maggie and Alec and their whole family a lot.
Almost all of my life. Yes, sir.
And would you see Alec openly show his display of affection and love to Maggie?
Yes, sir.
And from your observation, they have a close, good relationship?
That's correct.
And they were loving to each other and to Paul and Buster and their friends, correct?
That's correct.
And you can you think of any circumstance that you can envision, knowing them as you do, where Alec would brutally murder Paul and Maggie?
Not that I can think of.
Thank you. That's all the questions I have.
Anything further?
You were asked some questions about the sheds being unlocked. Paul ever complained to you that people were up there stealing all kinds of stuff all the time?
I was never aware of people stealing anything.
When you talked to Paul and heard Maggie and Alec at 8:40, was there any problem with that voice call, or did it come through just fine? The reception was good.
The call came through, yes.
And the last conversation you had with Paul was he was going to do what if the FaceTime didn't work?
Send me a video.
And he never did.
That's correct.
You've heard that video and you hear three voices, is that correct? Maggie, Paul, and Mr. Alec?
In the video, yes, sir.
When you're standing, if you're at the house or inside the house on the second floor or something like that, can you see the roofs of the sheds and down there?
The last time I had been out there, yes, you would be able to see the top of the structure.
And if you're standing out here in front of them sheds, could you see the top of the house the other way?
Same thing, yeah. Last time I was there, you would be able to see the top of the structure. There was trees growing between the houses.
And that was a long time ago, right?
That's correct.
Down there at the sheds, did they have like outdoor lighting down there?
Yes, sir, they did.
And if all that was on, could you see all that lighting from the house?
Yes, you would be able to see that there were lights on from the house.
If those lights were on, it'd be pretty well lit up, is that right?
If all of them were, yes.
You were asked about the boat wreck. Were you aware that Paul had been charged in that boat wreck?
I was.
Were you aware that Alec Murdaugh had been sued in that boat wreck?
I was.
What was your perception of Alec's wealth? Did you believe he was a fairly wealthy man?
Yes, sir.
How long have you known Alec Murdaugh?
Pretty much all my life.
As you sit here today, did you really know him?
Yes, I know Mr. Elliott.
But as you sit here today, do you really know him?
Yes, I know Mr. Elliott.
Thank you.
Anything further? You may step down. We'll take about a 10-minute recess. Ready for the jury?
Your Honor, one matter I'd like to address with the court. During and throughout the questioning that the defense has been doing, and including one question that was asked here today about any reason why Alec may kill anyone, one of the issues that's still outstanding is issues of the financial motives that exist. And obviously the state has already made a case as to the admissibility of that information, but I believe clearly to add to that, the defense through their questioning has opened the door to that. And so this witness has some information to start that, and I think that we've sort of gone through the looking glass on that very issue, Your Honor.
Your Honor, very briefly, we fully briefed this. There are a very limited number of circumstances where the financial information would come in. Simply asking this young man, who they asked about his relationship with Alec and Paul and everybody, could you conceive of, I think we said, are there any circumstance under which you know that he might kill Paul and Maggie? And he said no. That didn't open the door to any financial crime that he may have committed. And again, the admissibility of that financial information, those financial misdeeds, is not, I mean, this motive, by the way, is the most ludicrous. He's about to be discovered as having stolen some money that afternoon. So he goes home and butchers his wife and son to distract.
You argued that before.
But what I'm saying is, this idea.
You argued it before. You've called it ludicrous before. You're now repeating that same argument.
It's been a while, perhaps. I've said that. My point is, no door has been opened, and if we're going to have a full discussion on this, you indicated you needed factual basis. There has been no factual basis established. Thank you.
All right. Yes, sir.
Your Honor, again, and we have argued this, and I'm not going to repeat the various arguments that I've made. I think that we have, just to sort of summarize a little bit, we do have a specific confrontation that day. We also have the pendency of that hearing. And for the jury to understand that, we have to understand the extent of what is about to be exposed and what that actually means for him, the prospect of losing everything in life without parole. Will Loving. And he is one of Paul's friends. He's mostly here to talk about firearms and the shell casings and things like that. But he also will talk about a little bit about the boat case, about the pressures on the family, about selling the house in Hampton, and the fact that that there were financial pressures because of that boat case that they were having to deal with. And I've made it clear to the defense as well as to Your Honor that before we went into subject matter like that, that we would of course certainly alert the court. For this particular witness, that would be the questioning that I intend to ask that witness.
Your Honor, may I address this witness? He's my witness. Any information he has about financial pressure or the reasons they sold the house would be solely based upon hearsay, and it certainly didn't come from any conversations with the defendant. He has no independent knowledge of any of that. So aside from the overall 404B evidentiary rule, I mean, there's no basis of this witness doesn't have any actual knowledge of that.
We'll proceed with the testimony. I'll rule based on any objections I hear.
Thank you.
Bring the jury.
jury is present, sir.
Thank you. You may call your next witness.
Thank you, Your Honor. The state calls Will Loving.
Left hand on the Bible. Do your family testimony about to give the court in this trial shall be the truth, so help you God.
Certainly, God.
Thank you. Take a seat in the witness stand. State your name again for the record. Spell your last name.
Will Loving, Loving.
Loving, how you doing today?
I'm good.
All right. Tell the jury just a little bit about yourself. Where'd you grow up? Where'd you go to high school, college? What you do for a living?
I grew up in Columbia, South Carolina. I went to high school at AC Flora. I graduated from Georgetown Tech with a forestry degree. Pursued that for a few years. Now I'm working down in Charleston for a marine construction company. That's about what I'm doing now.
What year did you graduate from high school?
Graduated high school in 2015, and I graduated from Georgetown in 2020.
Where are you living these days? Just generally.
I'm living in Charleston.
Did you ever, over the course of your life, get to know Paul Murdaugh?
Yes, I did.
And tell me, when was that, roughly?
I met Paul when I was probably 15 years old down at Edisto. He was probably 13, and our friendship just met on the beach one day. That's about where I met Paul. But we did pretty much everything together down at the beach whenever I was there and he was there. We'd go hang out on the beach. We'd go on the boat, go fish, or just hang out.
And when you met him at Edisto, do you know where Paul was staying?
Yes, Paul was staying at his beach house at Edisto.
And over the years, as y'all's friendship developed, did y'all start to hang out more and more outside of Edisto?
Yes, sir, we did.
All right. And how old were you when that started to develop more hanging out than just Edisto?
Probably once Paul was later on in high school. So I would have been, 18, 19 years old. We started getting closer, and then, when I was probably 21 and Paul was 19, we got pretty close.
How old are you now?
I'm 26.
What are some of the things, as y'all got pretty close, what would y'all do together, aside from hang out at Edisto?
We would hunt and fish, go out, hang out with friends. We went down to the property at Moselle a lot. We'd go to Edisto a lot. Just kind of going wherever, going with the flow. We'd go down for a weekend in Charleston before either one of us, before I was living there. But we lived together in Columbia for a short period of time, right before everything happened. But yeah, that's about it.
Okay. Now you said y'all lived together, so y'all were roommates there for a while before the murders happened?
Yes, sir.
And was it just the two of you in the house, or were others living there as well?
It was just the two of us, and I was kind of just a couch guest, but it kind of turned into a long-term thing.
Gotcha. Were y'all planning on getting an additional place around the time that the murders happened?
Yes, we had already been in contact with a house, about to sign a contract on a house, me, him, and another friend from Columbia.
You mentioned that you would go to Moselle a lot, and what would y'all do at Moselle?
I mean, we'd do just about anything, depending on what we were there for. If it was during a certain hunting season, we'd go hunting, or we might just be there hanging out for the weekend, and might be there working. We did a lot of different things while we were there.
What kind of hunting would y'all do?
We deer hunted, we hog hunted, we duck hunted, we dove hunted, we turkey hunted, pretty much about everything.
Tell me about the hog hunting. How does that work?
We did it for a certain period of time with some dogs, and that was, you got a pack of dogs that chase them down, and you go up and neutralize them. But then we also did it at night with a thermal scope. It's based off heat vision, heat signals, so you could see them at night, and you had to use the thermal if you were going to do that.
Okay. And when y'all would hunt at night on the Moselle property, how would y'all physically do it? Would you walk around? Would you ride around on a four-wheel, or how would that work?
Most of the time we took a vehicle, whether it be one of the, farm trucks or, some sort of buggy.
You mentioned the thermal scope. What was that thermal scope on? What kind of weapon?
It was on a 300 blackout.
And what color was that 300 blackout?
It was black.
How many 300 blackouts did the family have?
They had 2.
And were those the only 2 you're aware of, or was there a third one?
Those were the only 2 I was aware of. I had heard something about the third after the fact, but the only 2 I was aware of was those 2.
And what did you heard about the third?
I just heard it got stolen out of Paul's truck at a party.
And was that years ago?
Years ago, yes, sir.
So there was a replacement gun, a third one. Is that correct?
Correct.
What was that gun like?
It was about the same as the black one, except for the color of it. It was tan. It didn't have any kind of sight on it. The first few times I saw it, and but other than that, it was about the same thing, just a different color. It was a tanner color.
And where would that gun typically be located?
I never really saw it move from the gun cabinet room. Most of the time, it was in the main house at Moselle in the gun cabinet room.
You mentioned that that particular gun didn't have a sight on it or an optic on it. Is that correct?
That's correct.
All right. And what does that mean? What's the difference between having a scope or a sight and not having? How do you shoot it if it doesn't have one of those?
So you have something called iron sights, which is just it's already attached to the end of the barrel. It just has a little thing that you can see down, but nothing to zoom in your image. It didn't have a sight on it at all. The other one had the thermal sight that you used at night, and this one had no sight on it at all.
At some point, did y'all go get some sort of optic or some sort of sight for it, other than the iron sights?
Yes, sir. We went and bought it's called a red dot sight. It's just got a little. It's not very big. It's about maybe 2 or 3 inches, and it just has a little tube, a little red dot in the center of it. It doesn't zoom in either, but it gives you a little bit better of a look at what you're shooting at, a little bit better than an iron sight.
Is it like a thermal sight in that you can see what you're aiming at night?
No, sir.
So what do you see when you look through the red dot?
You can just see whatever's out in front of you from the naked eye.
And then how does the thermal work?
The thermal works at nighttime. You look and see heat glows up in a different color than black. It glows up in white, so you can see it very easily.
When did you and Paul go buy that red dot sight for that other blackout gun?
It was either in late March or early April. I'm not exactly positive on the date, but we bought it from the Ace Hardware in Hampton.
And when you say early March or late April, what year are we talking about?
2021.
You went with Paul to get that?
Yes, sir.
And what did y'all do after you got the sight?
We went back to Moselle and we put the sight onto the rifle and sighted it in.
Describe to the jury what you mean when you say you sighted it in.
When you get a scope that's not already sighted in, you have to calibrate it with the barrel of the gun. So you have to go and change certain things on the side or on the top, whether it needs to go up or down or left or right when you're shooting. So that's what we had to do with that one, and it just moves. It doesn't move the dot necessarily inside the scope. It just moves kind of the whole thing, the whole sight.
Before we get to that, I want to ask about the property just a little bit. And I'm going to show you what's been marked as States 303. And ask you to step down with the judge's permission. I want to ask you about a few areas on the property. All right. Now, after y'all bought that, well, first of all, where is the residence on this particular image? Do you recognize this?
Yes, it's right here.
Okay. And, oh, I'm sorry. Is that better?
Down here at the bottom.
And what are these structures up here right there?
This is what we call a shed, or the dog kennels, or airplane hangar.
Okay. And can you point out the kennels in that image?
They're right here on the side up next to the pine trees.
And where are the driveway entrances to the property?
The two in this picture are right here down to they come down to the main house right here, where you can come in up here and come by the kennels and come down and then come down to the main house.
Was it common for everyone to use both of those driveways?
Yes, sir.
Which driveway did you usually use?
I didn't pass one driveway to get to another. Whichever way if I was coming from this way, I'd turn here. If I was coming from this way, I'd turn in there.
And your experience in knowing the family, was it common for both to be used?
Yes, sir.
What is this structure right here?
That is the cabin up on the side of the road, just the old cabin.
And was there like a shooting range or a shooting house in there?
Yeah, there's a shooting range across the road right here. It's like right here somewhere, and it goes right next to the pond area. That's just a little fish pond.
And what was the shooting house?
It was just a little wooden, gazebo-looking thing that you sat in and shot at a berm over here.
Was there a location that y'all know the property called the Dove Field?
Yes, sir.
And where was that?
It's right here behind this berm of pine trees.
Now, you said back after y'all bought that red dot site that y'all sited in that the blackout. Is that correct?
Correct.
Right. And which blackout are you talking about?
The tan one.
The tan one?
The tan one.
Right. And that would have been not the black one, but the tan one, and not the one that went missing years ago. Is that correct?
Yes, sir. That's correct.
All right. And where did y'all site that gun in?
We sited it in off the side of the main house. Right here, there's a little thing of steps that comes into the gun room, and we used the railing of the stairs to brace on and shot down into here as they were building a pond right here, so there was a berm, so there was no threat of the bullets going back there.
All right. You can have 614, please. When did y'all sight that gun in?
We sighted that gun in at the very beginning of April, or one of the last couple days of March of 2021.
And how do you know that it was late March or into April 2021 that you sighted in that tan blackout with the red dot optic on it?
Because that same weekend we were out hunting hogs in the dove field with the thermal scope on the black 300 blackout, and we also took the tan 300 blackout, with us with the red dot sight, but it wasn't very usable because you couldn't see what you were shooting at as it was dark. But we used the thermal, and I remember we saw 4 turkeys up in a tree, and we were talking about maybe turkey hunting that morning right there, but I think we scared them when we decided to shoot at the hogs.
So y'all decided to sight in the tan one the next day or thereabouts?
Yeah, it was sighted in the day before, I believe, or the same day, one of the two.
And y'all were standing right outside the gun room of the main residence?
Correct, yes, sir.
All right, I'm going to show you what's been marked as State's Exhibit 88. You recognize this gun?
Yes, sir, that's the black 300 blackout.
All right, and what optic is on this?
The thermal scope.
All right. Is this the gun y'all were sighting in, or was it a different gun that y'all were sighting in standing right outside the gun room in March or April of 2021?
It was a different gun.
It was a different gun.
Yes, sir.
Did it have a different optic on it right here?
Yes, sir, it had the red dot sight on it.
It had the red dot. Show you what's been previously admitted into evidence as State's 175. Do you recognize that?
Yes, sir, I do.
All right, and tell me what that is.
This is the stairs that lead up into the door that go into the gun room on the main house.
Okay. And was that where you were sighting in that tan blackout with the red dot optic?
Yes, sir.
That's not the one you just looked at?
Correct. Yes, sir.
And what's through that door right there?
The gun room into the game room.
All right. And describe, you said y'all were using the railing to brace it. What do you mean by that?
We were using this right side of this right side if you're coming down the stairs railing, because we're both right-handed, and you can brace up against it to make sure you're steady when you shoot at the target.
I'm going to show you what's been marked as States 176. And do you generally recognize that image?
Yes, the bottom of the brick below the stairs on the side door.
And was that where y'all, in the general location of where y'all were sighting in that third blackout with the red dot optic
Yes, sir.
in March or April of 2021?
Yes, sir.
All right, I'm going to show you what's been marked as 177 States. Do you recognize that?
Yes, sir.
And what area is that, please?
That is the flower bed right next to the stairs going up.
Okay. And is that in the same general area where y'all were sighting in that blackout with the red dot optic?
Yes, sir.
States 179, do you recognize that?
Yeah, it's just the bottom of the bricks at the stairs again.
Okay. Same area where y'all were firing that?
Yes, sir.
States 180, do you recognize that?
Yes, the flower bed next to the stairs.
Okay. Same general area where y'all were sighting in that other blackout?
Yes, sir.
That's not the one I showed you?
No, sir.
It's not the one I showed you?
Oh,
correct?
yeah. No, sir.
States 181, do you recognize that?
Yes, sir. It's the bricks at the bottom of the stairs. Same area.
Same area?
Yes, sir.
States 183.
Yep. Again, it's the bottom of the stairs, same area that we were standing in.
All right, I'm going to show you now what's been marked as States 184. Do you recognize that?
Yes, this is the little gazebo type thing at the shooting range that you sit in to shoot your rifle or whatever you're shooting.
After that time in March or April of 2021, which you remember because it was turkey season, correct?
Correct.
When was the next time that you saw that tan blackout that had the red dot?
I do not recall seeing it again after we used it that night.
The black blackout, was that gun frequently with Paul?
Yes, sir. If he was at Moselle, a lot of the times we had it with us. Yes, sir.
All right, and where would you have it?
In the back seat of the truck most of the time. If we were, riding around late or coming home from somewhere late, just to, check something. Go look for a hog or something.
Did Paul have a shotgun that he favored?
Yeah, he had his Super Black Eagle 3 Benelli shotgun.
And can you describe it any further? What did it look like? How was it colored?
It was camouflage and sort of like a cryptic, like bluish purple camouflage. Not real sure of the name of it, but it was more of a distinctive color camouflage.
Okay. I'm going to show you what's been admitted into evidence as States 89. You recognize that?
I recognize it, yes.
Okay, which gun is that?
I'm not sure whose gun that is, but it was used for turkey hunting.
Okay. Do you recognize that as one of the guns that was in the gun room at Moselle?
Yes, sir.
to show you what's been marked as states 4 into evidence. See if you recognize this.
Yes, sir. It's the camouflage Benelli.
All right. And which one is that?
Paul's shotgun.
Okay. And how can you tell the difference between the two camo ones? How do you know this one's Paul's?
It just has a distinctive camo pattern on it. They did have 2 of these shotguns that were the exact same.
But this is the one you recognize as Paul's, correct?
Yes, sir.
The 300 blackout round, is it a fairly loud round when it goes off?
I mean, yes. I mean, it's a gunshot, so it's pretty loud. But it's not extremely louder than any other gun.
Is it louder than a shotgun?
It's probably a little bit louder than a shotgun, yes.
Did you ever have any conversation with Paul about getting a suppressor for that 300 blackout?
Yeah, I asked him why he didn't get one, and he said that when you put a suppressor on a gun like that, it decreases how far you can shoot and makes your accuracy go down. So the gun that we already had with the night vision was already not a very long distance gun, so he didn't want to put a suppressor on it.
Up at the kennels, up at the shed area, was it common for firearms to be up there?
They were up there from time to time, but I don't think there were really any kept up there, no, sir.
On June 7th, 2021, did you ever have any conversation with Paul or communication with him?
Yes, I talked to him around dinner time. I was cooking dinner in the apartment that we were staying in, and he called me about wanting to get a hot tub for the house that we were about to move into. And then he sent me a Snapchat a little bit after that, and that was the last time I heard from him.
What was the Snapchat of?
It was of him and his dad looking at the trees and stuff that they had planted. They had one swoop down that obviously wasn't doing too good, but it was just a video of them looking at trees.
And you watched that video on your phone or something like that?
Yes, sir.
Over the years, as you got to know Paul, did you also get to know his family as well?
Yes, sir, I did.
Did you get to know Miss Maggie?
Yes, sir, I did.
To your knowledge, did Miss Maggie like to go down to the kennels?
Yes, she did.
And how would she get down there? Do you know?
Sometimes she would use her bike or her car or walk. She liked to walk. There are 2 labs around a lot around the property, so it was not uncommon for her to go down there.
And what would she like to do when she went down there?
She would go down and look at the dogs and mess with the dogs. A lot of times she liked to ride her bike, right before it got dark, on a sunset or something. But she was a dog lover for sure.
Would she go in the daytime or would she go at night when it was dark?
I only saw her go during the daytime most of the time. I mean, she might be down there once it got dark, but I don't think she would go down there after dark.
Let me ask you a little bit about Paul. What was his cell phone usage like?
He used his cell phone a lot.
Is he one to respond to you pretty quickly, typically?
Yes, sir. He would respond pretty fast.
You know where he kept it when he had it on him? What pocket he kept it in?
No, I do not. I know he kept it in one of his front pockets. I would have remembered if he kept it in his back pockets, but I don't know which one it was.
Were you, how'd you find out about the murders?
I was called numerous times in the middle of the night. I finally woke up to one around midnight. I think it was 12:07 if I remember right. And it was a cousin of Paul's, and she told me about everything. and I was in the apartment at the time, and nobody really knew what was going on, so I got out of the apartment pretty quick. Drove to my parents' house, talked with them for a minute, and we had some friends that were all awake in Charleston, so I drove straight down to Charleston in the middle of the night.
Did you ever go to Moselle in the aftermath of everything?
Yes, sir. I believe I went on that previous Wednesday and saw the family.
Did you ever have a conversation with Alec?
I did.
Did you talk to him about any conversations that you had with Paul that night?
No, I didn't. We mostly just grieved.
Did you ask him about what he was doing that night or what happened or the events of that night at all?
No, I did not.
Were you aware of what's called the boat wreck or the boat case?
Yes, sir.
And were you aware that Paul had been charged in that boat case?
Yes, sir, I was.
Were you aware that Alec Murdaugh had been sued in that boat case?
Yes, sir, I was.
Whenever Paul, did you ever talk to Paul about the boat case?
Not much. I didn't want to bring up something like that.
You mentioned that the family had an Edisto Beach house, is that right?
That's correct.
Had the Moselle property?
That's correct.
Did they have another property at one point in time?
Yes, they did. They had their house in Hampton.
Did they ultimately sell that property?
Yes, they did.
What was your understanding as to why they sold that property?
You can answer if you know.
It was just through the grapevine to help pay for some of the lawsuits that they were under.
The objection is sustained.
You say through the grapevine. Did you ever have a conversation or were privy to a conversation with Alec about that?
No, sir.
When you did you have a conversation or were you privy to a conversation with Paul about that?
We talked about the house being sold, but I don't believe he ever told me that that's what it was for.
Going back to the 300 blackout, what was the sort of effective range of that weapon?
From what I was told from Paul, it was around 50 to 75 yards it was accurate up to.
Did that have anything to do with the discussion about why not to put a suppressor on it?
Yes, it did.
When y'all were shooting that tan blackout 300 blackout rifle with the red dot optic on the side of the house in Moselle in March or April of 2021, who was doing most of the shooting of it?
Paul was.
Did Paul express to you any dissatisfaction with that tan one in the optic?
No, he did not.
Did y'all discuss any frustration, though, with it being unusable for turkey shooting because of the optic that was on it?
For hog hunting?
For hog hunting, sorry.
No, not really. We kind of knew that when we took it with us that it was kind of pointless, but we just took it with us anyway.
The red dot was pointless?
Yes, sir.
For night shooting?
For night hunting, yes, sir.
You said you were present when they purchased the red dot, is that right? Were
Yes,
you
sir, I
involved
was.
purchase the red dot?
Yes, sir.
Who paid for the red dot?
It was put on a store credit that was his father's.
That was his father's?
Yes, sir.
Whenever Paul needed money, who would you get that from?
He would normally text his dad.
When you talked a little bit about Paul's habits, and you guys had an apartment in Columbia, right?
Yes, sir.
Did Paul like to go to Charleston a lot?
He did.
He liked to go to Moselle a lot?
He did.
Did he spend time in a lot of different places?
Yeah, he was all over.
He was all over.
Yes, sir.
Happened to be back in Moselle on June 7th, 2021, is that right?
Yes, sir.
All right. One last thing. Have you had the opportunity to view a video at the kennels in Moselle?
Yes, sir, I have.
And were you able to recognize any voices on that video?
Yes, sir, I was.
All right, Your Honor, this time I'm going to play State's Exhibit 297 for this witness.
Get up. Get down. Quit, Cash. Come on. Quit. It's okay. Come here. Come here, Cash. Shit. Come here. What's this? Cash. Hey, he's got burgers now. Hey, Bubba. It's a kitty. There's no chicken. Come here, Cash. Cash. Quit.
Did you recognize on that video?
Paul Murdaugh, Maggie Murdaugh, and Alex Murdaugh.
And how sure are you?
100%.
The person whose voice you recognize on there that you identified as Alex Murdaugh, do you see him in the courtroom here today?
Yes, sir.
Can you point him out for the jury?
He's sitting right there.
Your Honor, please let the record reflect he's identified the defendant.
It does.
Mr. Levin, please answer any questions the defense may have.
Good afternoon, Will.
How you doing?
Good. It's a hard day, isn't it?
Yeah, a little bit.
You mentioned about a Snapchat video that you received on sometime in the evening of June the 7th. Do you remember what time that was?
I don't. It was later in the afternoon, somewhere around like 7 o'clock-ish in that area.
And what was it of?
It was Alex and his son Paul. They were riding around looking at trees that they had built and, laughing, having a good time.
Everything. So he posted it on, I don't have Snapchat. Maybe most people here have Snapchat, but tell us a little bit about what that is.
Snapchat's an app on smartphone that you can send pictures and videos to your friends. You can save pictures and videos, but it's just an app that most young people use.
And it's a way to share videos.
Correct. Yes, sir.
My kids have it, but are the videos supposed to disappear after some period of time?
Yeah, they have a limit on them. You can either send it it'll play over and over and over again until somebody clicks off of it, or you can go up to like from 1 to 10 seconds. But you can also save a Snapchat if you want to look at later.
And is it like Facebook? You have friends that want to be in your circle of Snapchat? Is that how
Yes,
that
sir.
works? And did Paul have a lot of Snapchat? They call friends on Snapchat?
Yes, sir, he did.
And would he frequently post things on Snapchat?
Yes, sir.
And would he frequently post things, events like he did on the evening of June the 7th when he and his father were out, messing around with a tree?
Yes, sir, he would.
And would he post stuff with his family events?
Yes, sir, he would.
Okay. And the Snapchat when he would post it, would it go to everybody who's in his, I guess, group?
Yeah, you have to send it to certain people. He wouldn't necessarily put stuff. They have what's called a story that everybody that you're friends with can see. He wouldn't necessarily always put stuff on his story, but he would send stuff to whoever he wanted to.
I think we're going to learn more about Snapchat, but let me ask you, when Paul would post on Snapchat, could people see where he was posting from? Did he have his location services activated?
I don't think he kept his location on. Sometimes they have filters and stuff that show you different areas where you are, but I don't think he kept his Snapchat location on.
Well, when he posted the video of he and his dad at Moselle, could you tell that he was at Moselle?
Yes, I could tell he was at Moselle just from being there, but maybe somebody who doesn't know the property wouldn't know.
Okay. All right. You were asked questions about the last time, you were with Paul, and, getting ahead of myself, I'm sorry. So you and Paul were good friends, and Paul was friends with your friend group out of Columbia, is that right?
Yes, sir, that's right.
And then y'all would sort of migrate to Charleston, and some of the Columbia folks went to Charleston, and y'all would visit down there?
Yes, sir, that's correct.
And I guess originally you all met at Edisto with family homes and vacationing, and right?
Yeah, that's where everybody met until everybody went to college, and then everybody just kind of meets up.
Okay. And sometimes Paul would come to Columbia and stay with you?
Correct.
And you had another friend, Wills Chapman, that he would stay with Wills?
Correct.
Okay. And Paul left a 300 blackout at your house for some period of time, didn't he?
Yes, sir, he did.
How long did Paul leave a 300 blackout at your home?
Probably a month or so at least.
Okay. And I think when Wills Chapman moved to Charleston, what did he find in his closet?
He found Paul's deer hunting rifle.
That Paul had left there?
Yes, sir.
And Paul had thought he had lost his deer hunting rifle.
Correct.
And lo and behold, it was at Wills Chapman's house, right?
Yes, sir.
Was that unusual for Paul to leave stuff everywhere?
No, not at all.
And so he was, would he leave guns around the farm?
Yeah, he would every now and again.
We'd leave them, say, in the golf cart.
Yes, sir.
And we leave them in unlocked trucks.
Yes, sir.
And you were asked about the kennels, but what about in the workshop, the shed? We leave guns down there.
That's where I was, referring to. You'd see them down there sometimes, but I don't think there was ever guns permanently down there. No, sir.
Okay. And when he left the 300 blackout in Columbia, was it the one that Mr. Waters showed you, this black one with the thermal scope?
Yes, sir, it was.
Okay. And you learned at some point in time that he got there was a replacement for one he had previously lost?
Yes, I did. I didn't even know that it was a replacement. Like I said, I didn't know about the original one. I just I just remember seeing the brown one.
And that brown one did not have a scope, right?
No, sir, it didn't until we bought one.
And you went with Paul to Ace Hardware store and purchased a scope and a mount for it, right?
Yes, sir.
Now, the day that you purchased the scope and the mount, was it the weekend that you were talking about, where the last time you used it?
I'm not sure if it was that weekend or maybe the next weekend, but they were both pretty close together.
Okay, but you were there when he purchased the scope and the mount.
Correct.
And you went, did you go back to Moselle and put it on the gun?
Yes, sir, we did.
And did you use the gun that weekend, or waited till the following weekend?
I'm not 100% sure if we used it that weekend or if it was the following weekend. I know we sighted it in that day that we bought the scope for it.
So that was the day when you were shooting off the railing beside the gun room?
Correct.
The day you bought the scope?
Yes, sir.
Okay, and it's possible you hunted with it that weekend, but if not, it was the following weekend.
Yes, sir.
And had you ever seen that gun again after that weekend or the following weekend, whichever it was?
No, sir, I haven't.
Okay. And would you be able to more accurately provide, know when it was? I think you said late March, early April. If you saw the receipt from the purchase?
Yes, sir.
Okay. I'll show you what was marked as Defendant's Exhibit 62. And ask you, first, do you recognize Paul's signature on that document?
Yes, sir, I do.
You know that to be his signature?
Yes, sir.
And does that reference the purchase of red dot scope and the mount?
Yes, it does.
And that's from Ace Hardware?
Yes, sir.
And were you there with Paul when he bought it?
I was.
Your Honor, we will introduce Exhibit 62 into evidence at this time.
A different one than the one you just handed him that you said.
It's the same one.
It's already in evidence, isn't it? It's just marked for identification, or is it in evidence already?
I'm moving in that evidence right now. Thank you. Will you tell the jury what the date of that is?
It is March the 6th,
Okay.
2021.
And Your Honor, I have a calendar here that says March 6, 2021 is a Saturday, and I would just like the court to take judicial notice that March 6, 2021 is a Saturday. No objection. Thank you. So knowing that it was purchased on March 6, 2021, a Saturday, does that help you reflect, remember when you last used the gun?
Yeah. So that was a Saturday. So we would have sighted it in that Saturday, and I do remember using the gun. It was the first week of turkey season because we were going turkey hunting the next morning, which would have been either March 20th or March 22nd. I can't remember what it was 2 years ago with the opening day of the season. So it would have been 3 weeks after we sighted it in.
Okay. So you sighted it on March 6?
Yes, sir.
Okay. I'll take that back. Thank you. When was the last time you saw Paul in person?
It would have been the weekend previous, or 2 weekends previous to when everything happened. It was Memorial Weekend.
So you saw him Memorial Day weekend?
Yes, sir.
And where did you see him?
We all stayed at the Edisto Beach House.
And when you say we all, who are you referring to?
Me, myself, and 3 or 4 other buddies, along with Alex, Maggie, and I believe that was it.
And did you spend a lot of time with Paul around his dad and mom?
Yes, sir, I did.
And how would you describe Paul's relationship with his father?
It was an awesome relationship.
And what do you mean by awesome?
It just kind of seemed like Paul was the apple of his eye.
Okay. And from your observation, you tell the jury what you observed of Alex's relationship with Maggie.
I thought they had an awesome relationship as well, from everything that I could see. You know, they were always laughing and everybody got along. You know, nothing was out of the ordinary at all.
Did Maggie and Alec open their home up to Paul and Buster's friends?
Yes, they did.
How many people stayed at the Edisto Beach House that Memorial Day weekend?
I'm not 100% positive, but at least 3 or 4 friends.
Okay, and where'd y'all stay?
All in the bedrooms. I think somebody might have been on the couch on the porch outside. Maybe the couch inside as well.
Okay. And was Buster there?
I believe Buster was there, but I'm not 100% sure.
And did he have any of his friends there?
Yet again, I'm not sure.
Okay. You mentioned that when you got a phone call from Paul's cousin, I believe, after midnight on June 7th, so early morning, June the 8th, you learned what happened, and your immediate reaction was to hightail it out of there?
Yes, sir.
And were you fearful for your safety?
At first I wasn't, and then I was calling back other friends, and you know, people started telling me to get out of there, so then I started second guessing myself, and yeah, then I got out of there.
And when you left, I mean, did you even lock it up when you left?
I honestly couldn't tell you.
Okay. I'm going to show you what I've marked as Exhibit 61, and it's a disc. And before you testify today, did you have an opportunity to view that very short video clip on the disc?
Yes, sir, I did.
And did you? Are those your initials on the disc?
Yes, sir, they are my initials.
And is it a short video of the Memorial Day weekend when you were down at Edisto with Paul and your friends and Maggie and Alec?
Yes, sir, it is.
And is it one of a birthday celebration for Alec?
It was a birthday celebration for Alex.
Your Honor, I would like to introduce Exhibit 61 in evidence and play the video.
Admit without objection.
Can you just play it without the sound?
Yep, I sure can.
We're just going to play it without the sound. But you've seen the video?
Yes, sir.
Are people singing happy birthday to Alec?
Yes, sir, they are.
Okay. On the Wednesday after Paul and Maggie were murdered, you went to Moselle, correct?
Yes, sir, I did.
With some friends of yours?
Yes, sir.
I mean, the friends of Paul's?
Yes, sir.
How many?
I think 3 of us went.
And how many other people were there, friends of Paul's?
There was a lot of friends of Paul's there.
More than 10?
On Wednesday, I don't know. I don't think so. I think a lot of people were kind of trying to feel out the situation, so just like the closer friends went. But there was probably 10 or so of his friends there when I was there.
And what was Alex Murdaugh's demeanor on the Wednesday?
He was grieving, crying a lot. I think we all were.
I think you described that he just couldn't talk. You remember that happening?
Yeah, it was pretty hard to talk when, he came and grabbed me and 2 other guys, and we just kind of had a big hug, and it was pretty tough for him to make words.
Was he crying?
Yes, sir.
Were you crying?
Yes, sir.
Everybody there crying?
Yes, sir.
All right. That's all the questions I have, Your Honor.
Before you do that, go back to your video if you would, please. Can y'all turn that screen around for me, please? Still at the very end, please. That video. Who's that guy in the green shirt? Do you know?
That's Chris Wilson.
You know Chris Wilson's relationship to Alec Wilson or Alec Murdaugh?
Yeah, I think they're best friends.
Best friends. Best friends should do each other right. Isn't that correct?
Yes, sir.
You were asked about when you found out about the murders, and you talked to some people, and then you kind of hightailed it out of your place, right?
Yes, sir.
Because you were scared, or at least thinking about the possibility of some sort of harm. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Because it was a shock for everyone, wasn't it?
Yes, sir.
It stopped everything in its tracks, didn't it?
Yes, sir.
And everybody was worried about this family and what was going on and what had happened. Is that right?
That's correct. Yes, sir.
Anything else people were worried about went out the window. They were all focused on Alec at that moment, were they not? In themselves. Is that correct?
I think they were focused on everybody that had anything to do with it.
Anything that had anything to do with this family. Is that right?
Yes, sir.
Shown the Snapchat video. You were also asked about another Snapchat video that you saw the day of the murders.
Yes, sir.
And what was on that video?
It was a video of Alex and his son riding around looking at trees that had fallen over on the tractor or on the golf cart.
Was it a short clip?
Yes, sir, it was.
I have States Exhibit 306, which is a Snapchat video, I believe, in without projection.
No objection, Your Honor.
Submit it.
Thank you. As soon as we get it flipped back over, I'm going to play that tree video. About what time do you recall receiving this video, to the best of your recollection?
It was later in the afternoon. I believe it was after I cooked dinner, so probably around 7 o'clock, sometime in there.
Is that the video you saw?
Yes, it is.
That was on the afternoon or the evening of June 7th, 2021?
That's correct.
Clothes that he was wearing, at least in that video you saw on the evening of June 7th, 2021?
Yeah, those are the clothes I saw in the video.
Long pants and a shirt,
Yep. Yes, sir.
and those particular shoes.
Yes, sir.
And you watched that video in real time when it came in from Paul's phone that evening, is that correct?
That is correct.
You were asked about the relationship that you observed between Alec and Paul and Alec and Maggie, is that correct?
That is correct.
To your eye, it was a very good relationship, is that correct?
Yes, sir. It was a good relationship in my point of view.
Did you know anything about Alec's finances?
No, I did not.
Did you know anything about his law practice?
No, I did not.
Did you know anything about where he gets his money?
No, I did not.
Did you know anything about where he was spending his money?
No, I did not.
Did you know anything about what his bank account balances were?
No, sir, I did not.
Did you know anything about the debt that he was carrying? Do you know anything about that?
No, sir.
Did you know the specific things that were going on in the boat case the week that Paul and Maggie were murdered?
No, sir.
Do you know anything about civil discovery and how it can expose financial information?
No, sir.
Do you know anything at all about him being confronted on June 7th, 2021 about...
Object.
Didn't hear the question.
Did you know anything about him being confronted on the morning of June 7th, 2021 about $792,000 of missing fees from his law firm?
Objection, Your Honor. It's totally improper.
Objection's overruled.
Did you know anything about that?
No, I did not.
Do you know any of the facts of those things that I just asked you about?
No, sir.
Nothing further.
Anything further?
No, Your Honor.
You can step down. Ladies and gentlemen, that's it for today. We'll see you at 9:30 tomorrow morning. Please do not discuss the case. This day, Tomorrow morning, however, I will address the Rule 404 issue, particularly 404B that provides that evidence of other wrongs, crimes, or acts may be admissible to show motive and some other things. And we'll address that issue tomorrow morning, and as far as witness preparation or witness availability, particularly in light of my ruling with regard to the last question posed, trust that the state will be prepared to move forward with evidence that establishes facts by clear and convincing evidence.
Yes, sir, Your Honor.
And we'll be in recess till 9:30.